I started making some little tests, as you can see here. And one of the things that I realized on this job is I had never used Nuke before, actually, before I started doing this. And we realized that we started doing some tests, but we quickly realized that we needed to see it on a curved surface. And the 3D comping program that we were using to do that just wasn't capable of doing it. And since I was working on other jobs, we weren't getting paid to do the test, everyone else was busy, it was like a one-man show, and the only thing that we could think of that could work was Nuke. But I didn't know how to use it. So I started working with with Kyle McCullough, who's basically our best Nuke artist, and he started giving me little 5-minute training sessions, and within a day or two, I was up to speed, and within about a week, I was able to create real HUD tests, doing all the elements myself and all the animation myself, and then piping it through Nuke. And the HUD was, a big part of it was a design project. So we immediately went out and started looking at existing HUDs, and these are real functioning HUDs. This was actually quite useful. It's a little video that we found on YouTube, which just shows a working HUD. So we got a sense for how they operate and how they work. So what I have here is this is a live shot. This is one of our shots with all the elements, and it's all live and linked. So this is exactly the way that we worked with it when we were running the shot. So here it is, sort of the big view. This over here is where the plate comes in. We do eye reflections. All of this stuff in here is where we add the HUD elements, and then way down here we go out. So I'm just going to zoom in until we can see some text in these things. So there we go. So you can see this thing is just enormous. So I'll take it from the top. So here are HUD elements. And the way this works is like, here are the Zing elements, and here they get composited through. Here's where they get tied into the match move for the head. We had to match move for every plate that we got. We match moved RDJ's head so that we knew exactly what he was doing. We also match moved the camera for the shot, and they also match moved his eyeballs, so we knew exactly where he was looking. And then we were able to tie in different parts of the HUD to his head or to his eyes. And then in addition to that, we were able to, because certain parts just felt too much like a helmet when it was like totally locked to his head. And so some elements we kind of introduced some slop or some lag, so he would move and it would kind of move like that. So we had all these levels of kind of like match move rigging that we were tying various elements into. Just to kind of look at one of these elements in particular, here's the source coming in, and it's just looks like some of that. All of these elements kind of combine to make this radar element right here, and this is just a 2D element, and then it gets tied into match move, and then it goes into the camera, and then it goes out. And so for each one of these elements, and here's the selector rings, here's some elements I don't know, power meters, more that are unlabeled, buttons, dock icons, radar widgets. We have all these things. Sometimes there was like 70 various moving elements. They were all had to be animated separately and individually, because in order to do the motion blur and depth of field for each element, they all had to be composited separately. Plus, we had to separate the foreground from the background, so it was this huge amount of rendering going on. We had one scene that had everything in it. And so this is a really cool scene, because this is basically the HUD. And you can see it's full 3D, and all of the elements are floating there in space. And there's like I said, like 70 of these elements or something like that, but it still remains really responsive. For example, I can skip around on frame to frame, and even with all of these elements in a 3D environment, in a full 3D environment, it's still really easy and fast and responsive. You can even, one of the things it's kind of fun to do is to zoom in. I'm going to go behind his head. It's a little confusing. And kind of pop back through his head. And now we can see what the HUD would look like from RDJ's perspective. And so this was kind of a good way for us to sort of check our heads and see exactly what we were doing. Most of these elements are 2D elements that we designed in Photoshop or Illustrator, but some of the elements, like for example what we call the Regmark Palace, this one is actually a full 3D element that we built native, that we constructed, modeled in Nuke. So, and the idea behind it was, Jon Favreau wanted some kind of way for him to locate himself and for him to know. It makes sense. Like, he wants to know, like, is he flying up or down? Like, if he's spinning around, we needed something that would sort of help him orient. So we created these little things, and they're really simple, but they are 3D geometry, and they're kind of inspired off of reg marks on a printed sheet, and they're also inspired off of the little XYZ locator thing in 3D apps. And so the little cube, the starboard and port, always points up if he's flying and points forward to the direction he's going. So if he was spinning, it would be kind of turning around like that. And if he was flying upside down, it would go like that. And so, but these were like live model geometry in Nuke. And the cool thing about the way that we were able to rig this up in Nukes or expressions is that for each new shot, all the artist had to do is plug in the match move data for their particular shot, and these little reg marks would pop into place and start flying around with the plate. So Nuke is just, combined with expressions, it's extremely flexible and great for large shows where you're sharing elements. Also, when we wanted to update these reg marks, because the design was constantly evolving through the shots, we could literally copy and paste this through a chat session, an iChat session, or we could save a gizmo, and artists could update it, and we'd never have to worry about like things being out of sync.